Wow. I'm just testing out this YouTube Live is something that I've had very limited experience of because usually I haven't even prepared my space. I should probably move my stuff a little bit. But anyway, this is Miss MAE, natural as ever. I don't have any makeup on. I don't have any special background effects or anything. Sometimes I just have an idea, and because I've experienced so many times that I've had an idea and then it's fleeted and passed. And I get so many ideas. I remember grandma once saying to me they're like butterflies and you can't grab on, butterflies are delicate especially when they're just coming out of the cocoon stage, and sometimes you have to just watch them and let them flutter past because not every idea will come to, fruition. But I've also experienced a lot of my ideas being taken, and it's something that it's very disturbing to me, especially when people have a habit of seeing your ideas and taking those ideas, and then they make a huge amount of money with it or have a lot of success, and then they come and dangle it and come and show off upon this person who give them the idea, show off upon me and hype and come and gloat in my face as if that idea didn't have anything to do with me, and they're just kind of like enjoying belittling me with my own ideas. But I'm making a direct effort because I've made a lot of videos in the last 10 years about my personal journey of suffering, and I have this magazine in the background from the church, other way, that way, from the church. Stop suffering, it says on the headline on the front, and this church helped me to get through a lot. And I was having a reasoning earlier on today, and it's just brought some thoughts to mind that I just feel like I need to vent right now. Because we all have different schools of thoughts, different religious beliefs, cultures, and all different things. And I like to find the truth in all different schools of thought because nothing is absolute. Nobody is completely right all of the time. Nothing is absolutely without fault, but I can find truth within Christianity, Rasta faith that I grew up in. I was raised in Christian, Rasta, Muslim. I don't know much about Judaism, but I know there's truth in all different schools of thought. Buddhism. I don't know much about Hindu and some of the other Eastern religions. I'd like to be able to study more. Within everything there's light and the dark. And I remember one of the pastors who's affected me the most in a positive way, and I've learned the most from, she always used to say, take the meat and leave the bones, because in every situation there's the meat and then there's the bones, and you have to just be able to, it's very difficult, especially with people right now, because everyone's going through a lot in these transitions and all of this global conflicts and all that's going on. It's bringing out a lot of conflict within families, within communities, within each country, within people. And I'm seeing a lot of confusion, a lot of delusions, a lot of the worms coming out of the woodwork, things coming to the surface, old demons, the skeletons in the closet in the families, things are just coming out. And when things are coming to the surface, it's just like when you're sick physically, things come to the surface because they need to be released, they need to be healed, they need to be resolved. That's why sometimes things have been festering, sweep things under the carpet, and eventually that dust will build up. If you don't clean properly, after a while, mold will start to grow and all kinds of things will start to grow in that. Bacteria will multiply. So, like physically cleaning, the same process applies to mentally and spiritually cleaning. And I'm speaking now from a place of experience. Over 20 years ago, I was very ill, seriously sick. In fact, I was only in my 20s, and doctors told me that if I didn't take medication, I could end up in a coma. Many of us have been through all kinds of health issues that you wouldn't necessarily know if you look at a person what they've been through. And this is why I think it's very difficult and ones need to try to refrain from judging a book by its cover, because you really can't tell when you look at someone if they're well or not by looking at their skin. They may have a rash. I have very sensitive skin. That doesn't mean that they're sick neither. You can't really tell the true value of someone or the true state of their health by looking at them and how they look. That's just one level. Just like beauty is not only skin deep, some things that have been going through my thoughts this evening, this night. It's after 10 now, UK time. It's very, very, it's worrying, you know? And I try not to worry. So when they say, why worry when you can pray? So I'm going to pray on it. But before I go and pray on it, I just wanted to test out this live YouTube facility, because I'm noticing that it's different on the phone from on the laptop or desktop. And I'm just testing out the platform this evening and the live capabilities to see what it's like. But I'm not necessarily going to continue this series in a live format, because if I'm going to do a new podcast, I'm going to try to make sure that I film it and it's not as rough as the diary of Its Diary or ITS Diary, Identity Theft Survivor Diary series, which was made in a very rough, challenging situation. I'm thinking about a new series. I have an audio podcast airing some of the dirty, pretty things, DPT, things that I would like to vent about personal relations and the things that I've been going through personally. And that is something that is personally for me, it's almost like my form of therapy. But what I'm also thinking about now is that I have a great deal of experience and I would like to move into a position to be able to offer my services. I'm working on retraining and to offering my services as more of a therapist and helping other people to work through sickness as well as emotional and other personal issues. Because believe it or not, looking at me, you could never tell. Everyone has at least one book within them. I've been through a whole lot on this journey so far in life, and I have a lot. Sometimes that's why I talk too much, because I have too much stories and I keep a lot of it inside. And sometimes I don't do any talking all day, sometimes for days. Sometimes when I meet someone and we get a chance to exchange, it can be quite overwhelming. We could go back and forth for a couple of hours, but the purpose has never been to offend anyone or to overwhelm. But sharing is caring, and venting sometimes is very necessary when we keep it all inside. That is one of the things that can be the root cause of disease. For when we don't feel at ease with ourselves, we will start to feel disease, ill at ease. So I'm thinking about a new podcast, Mystic MAE. I have many hats, and no, I'm not schiz. I've never suffered from schizophrenia or had any mental disorder diagnosed, and other than anxiety and depression, which a lot of people suffer with, especially in the winter months when we're lacking sunshine, hence the pale complexion. I have been someone who has learned many coping mechanisms for dealing with a lot of stressful, very stressful situations and emotionally challenging and personally challenging situations. But I'm finding that there's a lot of blockage to healing. So let me start off with the intention of making this new series about helping people on their healing journey, hoping that if I open the door, that people will start to realize that they can get assistance with their journey towards healing, but they need to ask, and they also need to be willing to invest in that, because it isn't something I put myself into debt. I remember when I was very ill 20 years ago, I was in a lot of debt because of the things that I needed to do, and it can be very expensive to get the right natural remedies, especially, and the right nutrition. But I wasn't worried about that at the time. I was just worried about getting better and finding the solution, finding the cure. Everybody's bodies are different, and so everybody's medicine may be slightly different. Some people may need more of this element or that element, but within you if you get in tune with yourself and you listen to your instincts. Some people find that easier to do than others, especially if you're not been brought up knowing much about natural medicine and natural healing. It might seem strange to you at first, but within you, sometimes it can be really simple. So I was thinking about something in relation to some of the men that I know and how a lot of people who I've met along the journey, some of them I've lost contact with, they can be very strong, but when men come across some challenges in life that make them physically not able to do what they were doing before, when they feel weakened, when they feel like their power has been reduced or diminished, they can become quite. Sickness is a journey I've been through, and all of us go through that thing where we feel negative, especially at the start. You get into this thing of why me, negative, and you start looking for getting into this thing of blaming and looking for someone else to blame for why you are feeling the way you're feeling is not going to help you on your learning and your healing journey. And this is why I came online today, because I need to say this right now to somebody out there. I'm hoping they'll hear me, even in the spirit, or they'll hear me, or they'll see this video one day. Blaming and looking for someone to blame for why you're sick or why you're hurt or why you're feeling the way you're feeling is not going to help you on your healing or your learning journey. And let me tell you why I'm saying this, because healing is a learning journey. Learning about yourself, learning about the true reason why you're in this situation, going into yourself and going within and finding the reason why this has occurred on a real, the pathology, the root cause of this disease, where it started from. There were always going to be external aspects and internal, but what is most important is getting in touch with yourself internally and rising to the occasion of the learning, what you need to learn about yourself and what you need to maybe perhaps do better so that you can be stronger and grow through this situation. It's a very difficult challenge, and depending on how difficult the debility is or the illness is how difficult that challenge is. But I'm speaking to someone out there to tell you that after going through a major illness, and at one point it was so bad, you do sometimes when you're really sick feel like you will never recover. But I was reading books at the time. Some of them I posted on my Instagram and recommended some books to some people, because I had to go into reading and studying and really learning about and researching about that illness and researching about illness in general and sickness in general, and reading stories about other people's journeys helps, because everybody's journey is different, but you can learn. And I was reading a book about Ayurvedic medicine. I was reading books about natural medicine, and I was reading a book about a woman who had serious cancer and managed to cure herself from a serious cancer where the doctor told her that she only had so long to live. And there are stories like that. If you research, you will find there are people who were told by doctors that they don't have a chance, and they managed to prove those doctors were not accurate. This is not about right or wrong, but sometimes people, not everything, not every statistic, not every, what do you call it, prediction. When someone predicts something, it's just a prediction. As we know, life is changing constant. The only thing constant in life is change, and it changes every day. So there can never be any prediction that is absolute, because it can change. Things do change, especially if we allow them to change. So why I'm coming online today is because I'm speaking to someone out there who is needing healing, and there are many people out there who need healing, and I'm trying to let you know that there is always a possibility. The world has endless possibilities. There are abundance of different outcomes, possible outcomes, but you have to do the work and you have to research. This woman had cancer, and what she had to go through herself was shedding her hair, shedding everything, stopping doing everything and anything that was toxic, including going right back to just juice and fasting and raw food and removing all toxins from inside of her body so that her body would naturally push out all of the toxic, negative, disease cells and renewing her body. It was a slow process, a very painful process that she went through. And I've spoken to some herbalists on my journey who have talked about this idea that pathology, disease comes from excess mucus, and mucus is something that can always be removed, but it's whether people are willing to put in the work to shed, to stop eating those junk foods, those processed foods, all of those things that we like that taste good, and to spend the time to really renew your cells is not an easy thing to do. When I was very sick, and I'm not going to go into the specific illness that I had, I say too much about that right now, but when I was very sick, I had to go through a strict diet. I don't keep up that diet anymore, but I do still, I'm very much aware and conscious of my nutrition. And at that time, I cut out all of the toxins and I was doing a very strict juicing, and it cost me a lot in terms of resources, but I had to do what I had to do to get my blood back and my body back in a healthy place. And especially when you're suffering from any kind of disease that where your body is fighting itself within, there's so many sickle cells, so many different varieties. Mine was not sickle cell, but so many different varieties of what they call autoimmune, when your body's producing excess hormones to fight itself. And there's a battle going on inside of your body. When there's a battle going on inside of your body, especially, you have to get back into yourself and figure out what cells are fighting and what might be the root cause of that, and what you could put into your body that will calm that, that will create peace within you. I am going through a journey right now and not yet fully established and retraining, but I am in a position where I'm able to assist some people with even just pointing them in the right direction to find those steps for themselves, that place in the journey where you want to get to. And what I want to speak into these people's lives right now is that if you remain stuck in why me, looking for someone to blame, that is not a positive place to be, and that will not help you to progress, to move past that. I went through that at the start of my journey when I was sick. I was only young, I was less than 25. I was like, why me? I've always been quite a healthy person. I've been fit. Why would this happen to me? Why me? Why me? You know, feeling sorry for myself. That is not going to help you. You have to be present. Yes, feel all of these things, and then you have to be willing to focus on the solution. What is the solution to this? If I stay stuck in this, I won't get better. I must move through to the next step and the next stage, which is how can I get to a better place? How can I find the solution? How can I find the best treatment for this? Researching, finding out what might be able to help with this, finding what help other people, trying different things, listening to your inner voice, getting into yourself, getting to know yourself better. These are the things that you can learn along the way when you're sick or suffering from some kind of disease, or something is broken inside of you that needs fixing. You have to put in the work. Staying in a place of trying to find someone else to blame isn't, even if somebody else, if you even had, like, for example, a negative experience, an accident that impacted you, and you end up in a situation where your body is injured and you need to heal. Yes, somebody else may have caused that. Yes, you have a right to be angry. Yes, you have the right to seek redress, to seek compensation, whatever it is that you need to seek. But you also need to look within yourself and say, I need to take responsibility for my part of this now. Even if I wasn't at fault, even if something negative happened and I wasn't at fault, even if I was innocent and I was impacted by an accident, even a natural disaster, all kinds of things can happen. It could be an earthquake, it could be a hurricane, it could be a building failure, mechanical failure. People get injured at work. I hear stories about that all the time. People get injured at work and didn't get proper compensation and have to fight for years for compensation. But still within that, other than you, just like I changed the name of the diary series from victim to survivor, if you want to survive and if you want to grow through that and grow stronger through that, you have to change your perspective at some point and say, okay, I put that's legal aspect or that side of it to one side and decompartmentalize, and now I focus on myself. How am I going to get better? I must take responsibility for my part in this. And even if I was not at fault, even if I was quote unquote a victim at the time, I don't want to stay in that victim mode. So, how will I get better if I take responsibility for, well, what could I do better? How could I prevent that from ever occurring again? What kind of safety measures? Did I have insurance? Should I buy insurance? This is the practical side of it now. How can I take care of my health better? What can I do to prevent and to prepare and also to work on finding treatment, a cure for myself by taking responsibility for my part? Even if I was not the one at fault or to blame, this is not about blame or fault now. This is taking responsibility for the part that I can affect with my personal power and how I use my thoughts and what I focus my thoughts on. If I keep focusing on that person who did me wrong, who was at blame, who wanted to see me mash up, who put in so much effort that they weren't happy until they actually saw a negative outcome. If I focus on them too much, I will not be focusing on the things that are going to help me to overcome. And we shall overcome. We shall overcome as long as we focus on upliftment, progress, still being productive. Can't even speak properly sometimes. Productive, proactive, even when we're not in optimum health. So if there's someone out there who's hearing this and it's speaking to you, I'm pleased to be able to inspire you. If you would like someone to work with, I also need to be able to take care of the things that I need to take care of. And I am able, I don't even like to say that word sometimes, I'm willing to assist people. But this is a service that I offer, and I have to be able to take care of the resources that I need to take care of. So that means that if somebody is willing, and I'm also willing, it's a possibility that there could be a meeting of minds, but they would also need to be able to come to the table with something and to agree what it is they want to achieve, and they would need to be willing to invest in those resources that they're going to need to invest in to be able to get to that better place. And sometimes we could start with small steps and small things, and we can build on it, because just like when I was working in entertainment, and I would say to people, we can tailor and customize services to fit your budget. What is most important is that people are willing to invest, because just like with entertainment and arts, music is something that, like a plant, it needs to be fed, and it's not just water and sunlight. Arts, projects, beautiful works, materials need to be sought. And unfortunately, whatever it is, fortunately, in this world, there is hardly anything that is free. So let's be thankful for those things that we still have. Like every breath, Selah, every breath. And realize that, a lot of the time, artists and people who do healing work, a lot of us get taken for granted. And just like where I started off, a lot of us have had a lot taken from them. And sometimes you try to help someone, and when they better, they get back up and they turn around and they are disrespectful and damaging to the same people that help them when they're down. So sometimes we who have certain experiences will end up retracting back and being less willing to assist because of the treatment. Be very wary about stepping on people who helped you build your foundation, or who helped when you were down, when you feel like you get up and you're up on your high horse now. Because as some people say, wise people say, the same people you see and look down on are the same ones you'll see on the way back down. There are ups and downs in life. So I say that because I'm trying to balance and be balanced, and still opening the door and leaving the door open in case somebody wants to make contact, that I am willing. But they also need to be able to meet halfway, and they need to be able to contribute and invest in themselves and invest in the process of healing, because you have to bring something to the table. We cannot pour from an empty cup. I have been through a lot and I'm still going through a lot, and there are still a lot of people who are making a lot of efforts, more so to take than to give, and to say some very negative things. But we, as people who know better and who are enlightened, do not listen to the negative. Remember, all reggae music, don't follow rumors. We don't listen to the negative because we know better, and who knows better does better. But in terms of the healing, is making life more and more difficult for those who are willing and who really would like to achieve something and to heal, when those ones who are afraid of facing themselves don't want to see other people face themselves, don't want to see other people self actualize and evolve and be the better version or even the best version of themselves, even within limited circumstances. It's real. The journey to healing 20 years ago was difficult enough, but I can see that right now the journey to healing has been made so much more difficult for so many reasons. Partly those ones who are trying to obstruct the way for other people, who don't want to see other people reach the heights, see the light like crabs in a barrel. But also because, especially here in the UK, I'm noticing even recently that some of the herbal clinics and the dispensary where I used to go for herbal medicine, mostly a lot of them are closing down and have closed down, and there's very few places. There's very few places to get herbal medication now. Real herbs, everything is being tampered with and controlled. And I remember reading about this more than 10 years ago, reading about the fact that the importing of certain herbs for indigenous people, people who have specific herbal medicine that is important to their cultures, whether that be the Indian, Ayurvedic, Chinese medicine, African herbs, the type of bush we use in Jamaica and the Caribbean. There was an effort made quite some time ago now, quite a while ago, to stop those herbs from being imported. All kinds of reasons. Yes, they have to protect the, just like, the Australian immigration and customs is very strict on bringing in certain matter, what they call organic herb matter, because it can contain things that are a threat to the environment or things that are a threat to the natural ecosystem in terms of small microorganisms. And they have all kinds of reasons, bugs or creatures that can live even in dry organic matter, that they don't want to allow into the country because they believe that it can be possibly the root cause of some new strain or disease. And these are the reasons they use for not allowing us to bring medicine in, because they're trying to contain things and control things. But the fact is, this is what's ironic about it, is that in keeping out all of these herbal medications, they stop people from being able to heal a lot of diseases because they're saying they're afraid of diseases coming in. Meanwhile, we have all kinds of pharmaceuticals and all kinds of other toxic chemical substances that are making their way through the channels and coming into the country, that are causing all kinds of viruses and diseases that haven't even been identified properly, that are unknown threats that haven't been diagnosed. And even myself, as I say, I'm still going through a journey. Last week I had to go and seek urgent treatment that I haven't had for some years, since when I was sick 20 years ago. And this is what is making me think about this right now. And I'm thinking about not gloating, but thinking about and being thankful for how strong I have been over the years and how much I know about natural healing and alternative remedies and complementary medicines, because I have done a lot of studying and I know that I am able to offer even consultancy and advice to people to help people to find their way. And there's a lot of people who, I don't take it for granted, who may be lost and don't know because it's not something that they've ever studied, and they may be being pushed left, right, and center by the traditional folks in the medicine, in that industry of traditional medicine. And I noticed after having an appointment the following day with my GP, my general practitioner, under the government regulated medical system, that it's still the same, and it's always been the same all of my life. That there is a, 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 a disagreement, almost like a conflict in the Middle East between the alternative remedies and the complementary medicine practitioners and the traditionalists. And there's still this clash of, egos, or who's right and who's wrong, and the power, who knows. And it's not about who's right and who's wrong, because there is, as I started off at the beginning of this, in every religion, in every school of thought, there is the meat and there's the bones, there's the good and there's the bad. There's the good side of traditional medicine, and there's also the grey areas and the things that could be improved. And just like complementary medicine, there's the good side, the good things, the good practitioners, the ones who have had a lot of success rate, who have many years experience, the things that are more tried and tested, and there are things that are still very much in beta testing stage. And how would we have evolved as beings, as in this world, if we hadn't have tried different things and evolved eventually to incorporate those things into our offering of what is available? If we stuck to just the same thing, the same foods, the same ideas as we had many, many years ago when we were more primitive, how would we evolve if we were not willing to try and test new ideas? But we also have to accept the parameters, we have to set boundaries. And what has happened in a lot of cases in this world is people have gone so far out of the boundaries of what is acceptable that they've now caused a whole heap of all kinds of unknown toxins and unknown enemies, unknown consequences to be affecting us all. So we are working through a whole heap of things, because there's always a good and a bad, a plus and a minus to everything. There is a great side of experimenting and being willing to think outside the box, but there's also the dangers, and we also need to be aware of how do we try to damage control and limit certain negative effects. And oftentimes, as I am seeing and observing, when there is mistakes made, no one wants to admit that a mistake was made. So they do this cover up, and that is what causes a lot more problems, because when people cover up things, the damage is even more. So as I started off at the beginning of this and saying, we need to be aware and conscious. But in terms of healing, blockages in our energy, like some of the energy practitioners that practice Reiki and all kinds of channeling with energy. A lot of the time, a lot of these persons, they work on removing the blockages within our body, but we also need to remove the blockages in our minds, and the blockages in this attitude of, I'm right, you're wrong, this way or that way, this absolute thing like, oh, you have to be using traditional medicine and doing what your doctor tells you to do and following instructions, or you go and you start seeking alternatives, and then you're on your own, and then you didn't do what I told you to do. So, you know, other people, well, now you shouldn't, or you should, or you shouldn't have done this, and now their ideologies are blocking you from possibly finding a solution that could be a combination, a collaboration. And so I want to try to help, but I don't want to go on too long. So I'm going to leave it right there and tell you all that when I was going through my healing journey, I combined using both the pharmaceuticals in small dosage that I was given and finding alternative remedies. And it was a combination of both Eastern, Western, or Western traditional and non-traditional medicines that help me to find the solution. And it took a while. It wasn't overnight. It was a journey. And so I don't think it should be all this or all that, or I'm right, you're wrong. Nothing in life is that cut and dried. It's not that black and white. It is a multicolored combination of patterns and colors and hues and tones and elements and textures. Just like when I was writing the book, Poetry for Color Therapy, and I was trying to start working on that journey of helping people to realize that something as simple as poems that focus on different colors can help people in the journey of therapy, because there is such a thing called color therapy, and it can be used for many different things. And there are so many different ways of finding healing and therapy in life. And some of them are not so profound, some of them are not so complicated, some of them can start with something very simple and very affordable. And so, as I said, ones, if they're willing, I am here, I'm willing, but they also need to be willing to bring something to the table. And that doesn't mean that I am saying, oh, this is going to be expensive or this is going to cost, because it can start with something that is very simple. And that's just the beginning of the journey. But it's about being willing and making the effort, and about also, yes, being willing to invest when necessary and not taking things for granted and not abusing the system, and definitely not abusing the healers and not abusing those people who are willing to listen or willing to assist, lend a hand. Because a lot of us, not just myself, a lot of people have been burned. And this is why now it can be so difficult to find good quality people to work with. It can be so difficult to find the truth because it's all hidden in the smoke, in the fog. People have become so afraid of sharing enlightenment and sharing truth with people, because oftentimes persons can become so swiftly switch. They switch and all of a sudden they become bitter and twisted, and they're looking for somebody to point fingers at, and they're not remembering that three is pointing back at them. When they're pointing the finger, they're not looking at things holistically and realizing that, hold on, before I start spitting, let me just allow this to process, and let me just think before I speak, if I'm certain of what I'm saying is true. Even though I'm live, I think very carefully why I'm speaking. That's why I'm speaking at an even pace. I think very carefully. I choose my words carefully, because I try my best in this life not to say anything that I don't fully endorse. So, yeah, this is a very slow, and this is just a very impromptu, spontaneous moment that I thought, let me check out YouTube Live and see if it's working. But this is Mechi, as some people call me, Miss May, Amici, speaking on a level about healing and about how possible it is. And there's a few people in my mind today who I'm thinking of, who I feel might be stuck in a place that isn't so positive right now. And I'm saying to you that there's still endless possibilities, and the possibilities abundant, different options, solutions. Is about finding the right one. And what's most important is that you are willing to put in the work, and that you don't remain stuck in a negative place where you're angry or looking at someone to blame, or and revenge and vendettas and all these things. You know, there's so many, there's negative and there's positive in life for everyone. We all have been through some things along the journey, but in terms of healing, what is important is moving past the negative and not being stuck, and being willing to keep going on that journey. Because as long as you don't give up, As long as you don't give up, this is the thing, as long as you don't give up, as long as you stay in it, even if you have to retreat sometimes, as Bob said, he who runs away will live to fight another day. As long as you don't give up on the journey, there is a light at the end of every dark tunnel. There is a there is a positive and a negative in every situation. Even when we go through some things that just seem so bad, sometimes when you turn it around upside down and you look at it from a different perspective, you will see the positive out of that. What good came out of that? What did I learn out of that? And honestly, there isn't anything that I can think of in this life that taught me as much as when I was so sick that I literally lost all of this thick hair on my head and I was looking so terrible. And I thought at one point I would never recover. And I really did go through a journey of shedding. And this is an important part of sickness and rebuilding. And it is, I was young, it is more challenging the older you get. Your body renews at a more rapid rate when you're younger, but there is no hard and fast rules about it, even in your older age. It's just about whether you are willing to put in the effort, whether you really want, because you have to want to heal, you know. You have to want to heal and you have to be willing to focus on the healing, on the outcome. Just like when some people are determined to get something and they focus too much on those monetary things and those material things when they won't stop and they set their eye on something and they won't stop. And you have a lot of youths, especially with that determination that they just want to get what they want, they just want to get what they want, they just want to get what. And sometimes they get what they want and they still are not happy because they're taking things for granted and it's not really what they really want because it's superficial, and what they really want is something deeper and more meaningful, but they just haven't found that reality or come to that place yet where they can see their true self, what they truly want, what they truly need. And this is why learning about yourself is a journey. We're learning more and more about what you really truly do not desire, because desire is just one level, but what you really truly, what makes you feel more alive, more fulfilled within. And self-love is the greatest love. And as ones who are wise will know and say, you cannot truly love anyone until you can love yourself. And loving yourself comes from a place of knowing yourself. So anyone out there who's going through a place where they've experienced some serious sickness, who needs some help, holler at Miss May. I will respond, usually quite quickly. I'm not making any agreements once there's a situation and someone is willing and we can have a meeting, short consultation, we can figure it out from there. But one have to be willing to reach out and willing to, to start. That's the most important thing. And to stay upful in thoughts as much as possible, and to focus on those positive outcomes with determination. There is always, no matter how serious a problem is, no matter how difficult, no matter how much, some people might tell you it's impossible, there's always a solution to every problem. Some things are more complex than others. But I do firmly believe that there is always a solution. And even at this point, I was saying to myself, I'm not quite ready yet to get to that point of doing certain work because I'm still working on myself and still training. But I just felt like I need to make this video today and put this thought out there, this positive thought out there of my intention, that my intention is to move to a place where I can start to do that more and less focus on my own issues and more assisting other people. But even you feel like you'll get to a place where you will heal yourself and be able, but we are all still on a journey. So even while I'm on my healing journey, once I get to a certain point and I'm strong enough, I can also, while I'm still healing, just like being still a student in life and being a student, and while you're teaching, you're also still learning as a student. It's life, it's got this two sides to it. It's never just one side to anything. There is a duality within this realm. And within all of us, there's the dark and the light, the yin and the yang. So I pray for you all, whoever is needing it, that you find your way, you find your journey, you find your way to wellness, with it, whichever name you call on. Jah Almighty God will bless you on your journey to wellness, and that I may at some point in the future be able to assist you with that. Blessings. One love. I think you can find my email on, but if you need it, Miss May, MSMAE creative @gmail.com.